So now we're going to finish up section 7.3, maybe one more after this possibly. But anyways, we're going to take a look at this solve for theta between 0 and 2 pi. So what we're going to do first then with this equation is we're going to factor here. Now one of my indicators that I know I'm going to factor is because I see this here, that 2. So when I look at this, this is what I think of. I think of this as really 2x squared plus x equals 0. And then if I look at this problem, what am I going to do first? I'm going to simply factor out an x here and here. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pull an x out, and then what am I going to have left? 2x plus 1 equals 0. So this is the idea that I actually use when I'm dealing with this down here below. So what that means for my problem here below is, that means with this, I'm going to pull a cosine of theta out. So we're not dealing with an x like above there, but we're dealing with a cosine, and that is my x in a sense. Okay, so then this is going to be 2 cosine of theta plus 1 equals 0. So as you can see, these here look almost identical other than one says cosine of theta and the other one says x. So anyways, from here, now my product is right here. Oops. So this simply means that either this is 0 or this is 0 using that 0 property. So the first one I'm going to look at is cosine of theta equals 0. So now I think of this idea of the unit circle. So I just draw it off to the right here. And then I'm thinking about where cosine of theta is 0. Now if I understand that unit circle, I can see it clearly here that up here cosine is going to be 0, and down here cosine is going to be 0. And up here this is pi halves, and down here it's 3 pi halves. So since I'm between 0 and 2 pi here, that tells me then my theta is going to be pi halves or 3 pi halves. And that's how this one works here. Now let's take a look at this next one here, this one here. Now I have to think about where this one is 0 at. Okay, so I'm going to write two cosine of theta plus 1 equals 0. And then what I want to do next is I want to move the 1 out. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So that's going to be 2 cosine of theta equals -1, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So then this is going to be cosine of theta equals -1/2. Now when I look at this, I think of the same thing. So I draw my unit circle out. Okay, thinking first off, where is cosine negative? Because that's a negative ratio here. Okay, so that means where is cosine negative at? And I know it's, if I know all students take calc, I know it's going to be in the second quadrant, and then I also know it's going to be in the third quadrant because sine and tangent are positive in those quadrants, which means cosine is negative. And cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this is going to be a 1 here, this is going to be a 2, and that's going to be a -1 too, because remember, this is really the x, this is the y, and this is on the negative x side. So that means this side over here, using the Pythagorean theorem, is going to be a 3, square root of 3. That's going to be a negative square root of 3 down there because now I'm going on the negative on the y. Okay, so now when I take a look at this, I just have to know what those angles are now. So let's see, this angle right here, I have to find out. And then the other angle I have to find out is on the other side. But let's deal with this one first. I know this reference angle here is 60 degrees. But in terms of radians, that means it's going to be pi thirds. So that means if I went all the way around to pi, so I went all the way down to here, that would be pi. And pi is really, if I put it in terms of thirds, 3 pi thirds. So that means I'm going a pi thirds short. So that means my theta is going to be 2 pi thirds. And then for the other one, And then for the other one, now keep in mind, I'm going to go all the way around here now. and that's going to be 3 pi thirds plus another pi thirds, so that's going to be 4 pi thirds. So there's our answer. So now when we look at this all together, so we have these two answers here from our first part and these two answers from our second part. Now again, remember the directions said from 0 to 2 pi. So that's essentially going to be all of our answers.